Live from the top of the beautiful towers at Merle Hay Mall, all 6 stories of it, it's FaithWorks Live with host Michael Damastis.
Yes, I am Michael Damastis, and this is FaithWorks Live, and I am very happy that you are joining us today for another edition of FaithWorks Live. And today's Monday. That means in the studio with me today is Dan Hudson, the preacher at Pathway Church in Johnston, Iowa.
Yes, sir.
And my son, Jacob Robert Damastis, is here in studio with us again today, and he's going to be bringing us in a little while a sports update. So, welcome, Jacob.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, Dan.
Yeah.
You look pretty snazzy.
Oh, man, I put on my favorite outfit for you today.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was thinking of you, honestly. 100%.
Dan went last night with thousands upon thousands of other elderly people.
No, it was literally everyone else in the state of Iowa but you.
They went and saw...
Of all generations.
They went and saw Neil Diamond in concert.
Yes.
And there were people out in the lobby that were helping sell packages for Branson trips, right? While you
there should have been. There really should
trips to Branson. Oh, okay.
It was crazy because there were people, in their 20s and people in their had to be 150s.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
here's the justification.
No, I'm just saying. I got it as a gift, and I went with my mother-in-law. We had a great time. It was great music. I mean, I was in high school. When I was in high school, like early high school, that's when the Jazz Singer came out. Just to put some perspective of like his career. So he obviously had been going on long before that. And so that like my world of Neil Diamond is Jazz Singer forward. And it was really good. It was entertaining.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad for you.
Can I be 100% honest?
Yes.
I don't know if I've ever heard a Neil Diamond song.
Now, you've heard a Neil Diamond song. You've heard a Neil Diamond song.
Almost every song on the radio he wrote.
All the bad ones.
That's where my mind went. I was going to like Justin Bieber, you know.
Yeah. So
greatly influenced by Neil Diamond.
I don't know why, but the only thing whenever I hear Neil Diamond, what goes in my head is like a rhinestone cowboy.
I don't think that's even him.
That's not even him.
That's awesome. See how good I am with this?
Yeah. You missed a good concert because of your ignorance.
Sweet. There's Diane, Sweet Caroline. Okay, I know that song.
Oh,
Sweet
I know that song too.
I posted part of that on Facebook for my Iowa State misfortunate friends.
Yes.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So Dan went to the elderly show and had a good time.
I felt very young.
They gave out free
I
walkers.
bet you did.
I felt chipper.
I wonder why.
I was like, yeah. Do you need my ID before I get in?
So the open bar was prune juice. And
No, it really was. It really, honestly, it was cool seeing people in their 20s shouting and jumping up and down and thinking, you guys don't even know. I mean, like he hasn't written a song in 100 years, has he? Or I don't know.
120s? Is that what you meant to say? Jumping up and down?
No, in their 20s, like 2-0, double-digit figures, and young people.
That's cool, though.
You know,
that's
really
cool.
Kind of cool.
It's really cool to see generations like that come together
music
with
brings
music.
Us together.
Yeah,
Can
it's
we
really
say
cool.
that?
All right. Here's my bad concert confession.
Yes.
For real.
Yeah.
Okay. I cannot believe I'm about to say this on the air. And this is gonna be, I'm not gonna live this down.
This will cost you.
I saw Culture Club in concert when I was in junior high.
Please tell me your parents made you go or something.
No, I didn't. It wasn't anything like that. I went. One of my aunts.
You don't know?
I don't know.
My Aunt Becky. It was Color by Numbers.
Yeah. Oh boy.
My Aunt Becky took me, and she was like, "Hey, you're coming with me to this concert."
Did your parents like slap her?
Oh man, I'm so sad that I did that. That's part of my history. But it's real. So
I would make fun of you if I knew who that was.
Yeah.
Yes, you would. You really would.
You really would.
Boy George.
Think Caitlyn Jenner.
Boy George was cool before it was cool.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's try to redirect this ship, shall we? So I'm not sure if I can listen anymore. Diane said.
Jesus a little bit.
So last week we began something. We started talking about the issue of doubt
Yes.
and how there's a lot of questions. A lot of times that
Right.
Christians
And they're honest.
have questions. Yes, and it's not a terrible thing if you actually are a Christian and you believe in God, but you have doubts from time to time. That's not a bad thing. In fact, that can actually be a healthy thing. And we kind of worked our way through that whole topic last week. And here's the other thing. This is something I want you, the listener, to ask yourself as well, because this is a challenging issue, because a lot of people have questions on what we're going to talk about today. And that is this. How would you respond if somebody came up to you and asked you the question, how do you know? I mean, how do you know that God exists? What would you say? Would you just be like,
Because
because I
The
say
Bible
so.
tells me so.
Yeah.
It's a song.
Oh.
Neil Diamond wrote
I'll
it.
sing it for you.
So, but genuinely, here's the
Right,
thing. In terms of our questions about doubt and questions that people have, somebody comes along and says, I'm really struggling. I'm really doubting. How do I know that he's there? How do I know God is real? What would you say to that? I really want to know what you would say. So call us or text us 515-727-5842 and let us know what you would say to that. But that's a challenge right there. And how do we respond to that person? Because the Apostle Peter would tell us that we always need to be prepared to give an answer for the hope that we have. And so what would we say?
But I tell you, I kind of, that's one of those verses I squirm at a little bit, because people who are like really passionate about apologetics, defense of the faith, will use that verse and then make me like shame me with like, I'm not that guy. I'm not going to pull out a 14-page outline of scientific research and I went on a quest where I, gave up everything for 6 years and pretended I was a trial lawyer or something. Like, I'm not that guy. But there are common defenses of the faith. There are things I can rely on in my
absolutely. Absolutely.
Someone like me who's
well,
not
and
that
you
guy.
start studying this, and there can be topics out there, and I don't know, just words thrown around in this whole arena, especially in the existence of God, that cosmological, teleological, whatever, and you start thinking, what am I getting into?
Yeah.
And so
I know some of those words.
that's good.
Spelling
I'm glad.
test.
Well.
I go to a spelling test in my head. I didn't read that one in the Bible. I don't have to have a defense for that.
So, but it takes all kinds. I mean, because
Right.
you got a guy like Lee Strobel,
Right.
that
And I
is
respect
what
them.
Yeah, and so he wrote The Case for Christ, of course, and that turned into a movie. And by the way, if you never saw that, that's a great movie. Did you go see it, Dan?
We were talking about that last night. No. And I was really wanting to.
You wanted to go see Neil Diamond instead.
I had time for Neil.
Yeah,
But not
right.
Lee.
Oh, I'm ashamed. See? Once again, I'm shamed.
yeah. So that movie, by the way, it's really, really well done. It's a great movie, and it does a good job of this guy's personal struggle, and he wasn't like this. Yes, he was a journalist for the Chicago Tribune. Yes, he did go on a quest, but they also show that he was a lousy husband. He was a beer drinking guy. He was just, he wasn't perfect. He was rough around the edges, and but eventually, through his study and quest for truth, he came to an undeniable conclusion that I can't deny this anymore. The evidence is too overwhelming, and I think that's really kind of an important maybe way to start to answer this for us, because some people get very unfair when they start talking about how do you know God exists? Prove to me beyond any shadow of a doubt. Well, that's not even the standard that our courts use. We don't have that kind of a standard. What we have is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And so that's the key. What makes the most reasonable sense when you start having questions about things like this? What makes the most sense? And I think that's a really important thing, to not put a standard, not hold Christians even to a standard that we would never even hold our own court system, our own legal structure to. That's...
we don't ask those questions about so many other things. I mean, it's good to ask the questions. I mean, that
Sure.
At the same time when I'm saying this, but like I haven't had a personal conversation with George Washington, But I know from the basic evidence, and it wasn't that long ago. I mean, he was around. That's kind of a bad example, but I'm just saying, I put as much faith in the stories of George Washington as I do in Jesus, because it was fairly close, and there's historical documents, and we know he was there.
He didn't lie.
Ever.
He cut down a cherry tree, and he didn't lie about it.
Yeah, right.
He crossed a river too.
Right. I have that picture.
Do you really?
No, I don't. But.
Maggie Schmeiser on Facebook just put up, she said, the proof that God exists by looking at the miracle of birth, whether human or animal, and all the beauty of the world that's around us. God has given us gifts of voices to sing, and doctors gifts of surgeries to perform. And so, I think that there is something like that we can look at the world around us and conclude, here's the problem, though, that the others look at the same evidence and they go, well, that's not proof that there's a God. That's just,
My daughter went through nursing school a few years ago, and she was still living with us at the time. And so we had a lot of conversations as she was going through and processing the information she was learning. And there were so many times she'd come home and just think, how could anyone think this was an accident?
Right.
I mean, she's learning all these complex systems and all these things that have to work in unison and together, and just the way we're wonderfully, fearfully and wonderfully made. It's like, how could you possibly look at that and say, oh yeah, that just kind of spontaneously happened and it evolved? I'll never forget watching that same daughter be born. I mean, if you were able to
twice.
Yeah, exactly.
It was really hard.
I was sweating. I just remember that moment.
It was a drag.
At first, I thought I was going to be delivering her. I thought, how much do we pay this guy? Because he's not here, But when she was born, just this, I'm just like, it's just an overwhelming. There's like that.
I got to that moment, but not initially. It was really hard.
Well, I know your voice.
It was just, they wanted. It was supposed to be really special,
was a little rough,
and
man.
I was supposed to cut the cord, and it's not like this happy kind of cutting a ribbon thing. It's like cutting garden hose, man. It was so bad. It was so. I was gonna pass out.
Now you're ruining my moment.
I know I am. I'm sorry. Listen, how do we know? How can we tell people that there is truly a God? What do you think? What do you have to say on this issue? Give us a call or text us, 515-727-5842.
You're listening to 99.3 The Truth, where we don't just rock the gospel, we talk the gospel. But don't just sit there listening. Come join us. Text or call 515-727-KTIA.
And you're listening to FaithWorks Live, and I am your host, Michael Damastis, and we are in another episode of FaithWorks Live talking about the questions that people have, the struggles that people have with the faith. And at times, if we're honest, at times we all ask the question, are you really there, God?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is this all real? How do we know for sure? And I think I just want to be really clear. If you've never wondered, is it for real? Is he there? Then you just cannot possibly be a carbon-based life form. Because we all have had that moment, that time. Now, we don't stay there, obviously, but we've all had questions. And so how when we have an individual that's coming and struggling, I'm really struggling with whether or not God's real, what should be our response to that individual? And I do want to say, by the way, I got an encouraging message because this was affecting you too, Dan. But a listener had contacted me and just said, "Hey, your show last week on doubt. You need to know that really, really was something that helped me." And I've been struggling, but that was really great to just know that I'm not the only guy that has issues with that. So
I would be a little leery of someone who says they never doubt, because it probably means they're. That's
awesome. We're having some mic issues with Dan, so my producer can get that worked out here pretty quick, so we'll figure that out. But I am sorry about that. But yeah, it's really cool to get an encouraging note like that, to know that when we talk about these things, that we're not talking just out into the air. There are people that have the same kind of a struggle like you might have. And today's topic, the issue of whether or not God exists, is one of those topics where I believe that a lot of people at different times, struggle with this. Is he there? And then if you have somebody, you're not there, you firmly have a committed faith in God, you know he's there. But if they come to you and they say, how do you know? How can you be so confident? What are you going to say to them? Because that whole, well, the Bible tells me so, I don't know that that's the best answer for somebody that's really struggling. So we need to be able to give them something that's going to help them. Now, here's for me, as we kind of start going through this, I don't want to get kind of bogged down in the technical part of things.
Yeah. Right. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on.
Fix the mic while we're talking here.
Behind the scenes. But I don't want to get bogged down in the technical stuff of this.
Right.
Because that's not necessarily helpful. But what is helpful is some of the big picture part of this. And that is, we know that everything had to have a beginning.
Mm-hmm. Everything started somewhere. So, I mean, nothing just happens.
That is right.
I'm talking. Yep. Yeah. Nothing just. I know there's a lot of people who like to think there's a spontaneous, generation of things, and that's hard to prove too.
Right. Okay. That is awesome.
Having 3 conversations.
Yes,
going on.
we are. Behind the scenes, guys. Facebook Live knows that we have a whole bunch of people in here that were helping get the mics fixed.
Literal circus.
So, yeah. But listen, here's the reality. Everything had to start somewhere.
Right.
So, every person has a beginning. Every animal has a beginning. Every tree has a beginning. So you kind of are left with just a few options. If we're gonna talk about God's existence, we're gonna say, well, where did everything begin? Mm-hmm. Because we're either gonna say everything just has been. That meaning, like some would say, well, matter is eternal. It's just
Which
always
takes faith
existed
in itself.
Exactly.
Right. Which is a different faith.
And there's not too many, and don't hear this in the wrong way, but there's not too many materialists out there that I am aware of that would just blatantly admit. There are some, but that would say, well, matter has always been here. It's always existed. I don't know too many people that say that. Mm-hmm. So that's not necessarily a widely held or widely accepted view. But then there are those that say, well, yeah, it did have a beginning, but it was an accident. It was a random event that, everything began
like
with.
A bang.
Yeah.
Like a big explosion.
But then again, it just kind of, it's like continues to beg questions. It's like, okay, if there had to be something that existed then.
What started?
I had it explained to me as there were 2 molecules.
Where did they come from?
Exactly. But listen, 2 molecules
Don't ask
that
questions.
were there.
It's science.
And they had been there for. You never know. You just don't know how long they'd been there, and then all of a sudden they collided, and then we got ourselves a big bang.
Well,
and from that, here we are.
So the 2 molecules, we can't ask about them. So
it goes back to the issue of where did it come from?
Where did they start?
I don't have a problem with the Big Bang as long as we know who started it.
Exactly.
Who banged it?
So who did that? Who banged stuff? Well, listen.
All right.
Listen, I this is the reality. For me, getting to that question of beginning is a very important question. And that's really kind of what the focus would start for me is when somebody's struggling, well, you just start asking that, well, where did it begin? And what makes the most reasonable sense? Does it make a lot of sense to say, well, there were 2 molecules. They've just always been. And at one point, they just were kind of, floating, and then they hit each other.
I mean, literally, that's exactly how it was explained to me.
So, does that make sense? Is that the most reasonable explanation that science can give us? Or does it make the most reasonable sense to believe there is an eternal being, as Aristotle would call him, the uncaused cause, the one who started it all? the one who is outside of everything that began everything.
And then we can debate on who that is,
right,
or what that is. But it's a different conversation. There has to be something,
right,
or someone, or some force.
When we look at life as we know it, and seeing that everything has a beginning, there's a beginning point for everything, and we could also even argue there's an ending point for everything. But when we look at life as we know it, that makes the most sense, reasonably, to fit in the eternality of matter, the eternality of two molecules, creating a Big Bang, or there is a being, a thing outside of everything that has always existed, that helped to bring about all that there is. That to me, honestly, makes the most reasonable sense. And so I believe that's a helpful understanding of things for me. And I'm wondering about you. What do you think? Does that help to try to answer that question? Well, where did it all begin? If we're struggling with, is God real? Then we got to ask ourselves, how did we get here? How did all things get here? And is that a helpful response to a person that's struggling? Maybe it's not. Maybe that person's like, that doesn't help me, and so maybe that wasn't helpful information. I think that helps some, but that isn't necessarily helpful to everyone. So what about you? 515-727-5842. I want to know, what would you say, for real, to a person that wants to know, how can I know that God is real? How do I know he's really there?
It's Mikey, he's better than TV. We're listening to Mikey, and best of all, it's free.
And you're listening to Faith Works Live, and I am Mikey. And this is awesome. That was my mother-in-law, Linda Curry, who has always given us great jingles. Man, we got a great new Friday jingle, by the way. We aired that last Friday, and I think it's wonderful. It's my mother-in-law giving me a jingle from a beer song.
Beautiful.
So it is Monday, and Jacob comes on Mondays, and he gives us a sports update during this segment. And so here we are with the sports update from Jacob.
What's going on, guys? So this week with the MLB, the Cubs completed their first sweep of the season. Go Cubs, go. The Central Division, though, it's still not looking too good for them. The Brewers are in first place. Cardinals are in second. Cardinals are 1.5 games back from first place, and the Cubs are 2 games back from first place. But the things appeared to be clicking well for the Cubs this last week. I mean, they started to look sharp. They started to look together like a cohesive Major League Baseball unit.
Yes.
Didn't they win something big last year?
They
Shouldn't
did.
They already be there?
They should.
Oh.
They really should. But the way I see it is, there's now another 108 years that we can wait.
No.
Yeah. So,
No.
Anybody know who Aaron Judge is?
No.
You don't know who Aaron Judge is?
I do not.
The Yankees, man. He's a rookie on the Yankees. He just joined a very elite group with names like Babe Ruth in it and Alex Rodriguez. He has hit 15 home runs in the first 40 games.
Wow. That's actually
he is
pretty impressive.
6'7", like 250 pounds. The guy is huge. He is massive.
Can he get to first base?
He can.
Impressive.
Yeah, he's actually really quick.
Huh.
He kind of looks like a football player, but yeah, he's incredible. It's the first time this has happened for the Yankees since 1987. That is a whopping 30 years of baseball since that's happened for the Yankees. The NBA. I know nobody likes the NBA, right? Right, Dad?
No.
Yeah.
Not since Michael Jordan left the Bulls.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about that. Well, not really him leaving the Bulls, but we're going to talk about Michael Jordan. So the even though with their last game, their blunder, I guess, in Game 3, the Cavs look good. LeBron obviously did not have a very good half in Game 3. But if they win, if they move on to the championship and they win the championship, I think we need to start talking about LeBron James in that conversation for greatest of all time. We really do. We should. I'm just telling you, man. He's dominant in the postseason. He is dominant in the regular season, and not only that, but he is carrying his team right now.
Can you believe I've never seen him play?
You haven't.
I have never seen him play.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
I haven't seen him play with my own two eyes. So I can't really join the
conversation.
See, that's fine.
I've watched LeBron. You can't deny he is great.
He's amazing.
He is good. He is good. I mean, I'm not going to deny that. He's nowhere near Michael Jordan.
I don't know, man.
No.
I don't know.
See, this is the problem with this generation. That's unfortunate. And by the way, Diane, your Cardinals comment on Facebook is unacceptable. God loves the Cubs. We all know this. So just
not for another 108 years.
No. That's not the way it works.
The only notable thing in the NFL this week is that Giselle, Tom Brady's wife, went in an interview and said that Tom Brady had a concussion this season. When that was not reported, and that is a rule.
That's like
that you're supposed to report a concussion.
Deal.
That is a very big deal. So what does this mean for the league? What does this mean for Tom Brady? Is he going to face another suspension?
What does that mean for his wife?
What does that mean for his wife? Are they going to have some conversations? I'm assuming they're going to have some conversations.
I see some counseling coming up.
Yeah, probably. But that's about it for the NFL and really my sports update. But next week is going to be predictions week.
Ooh, there you
predictions
go.
week. I'm going to be making my unbiased picks for the NFL postseason, all division winners, and yes, I will be making my pick for the Super Bowl next week.
Did you notice he said my unbiased
It
picks.
will be unbiased.
Okay. Just coincidence. They will all be Green Bay Packers.
Just coincidence. I mean, it's just a coincidence.
Well, thank you, Jacob, for another great sports update this week. And we have been talking today in studio about doubts and particular questions about God's existence. And we have on the line a caller, Stephen, who wants to make a comment about doubts. Stephen, are you there?
Hey, how you doing, Pastor Michael?
I'm good, brother. It's good to hear from you.
Yes. Couple things. I had to make a quick say about the NBA and about Michael Jordan and
yes
and LeBron. LeBron is an excellent player, but and I've grown up watching both of them. He's not a patch on Jordan at this point.
Oh,
thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Confirmation.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, by the way, just Stephen, so that you know, Michael Jordan and I breathed the same air once. I was in the studio in the stadium watching him play, and so we were breathing the same air. So we're pretty close, pretty tight.
Yep. Yeah. I got a chance to go watch him play a couple times as well, but he's. I actually love LeBron, but LeBron has some work to do yet.
Give it a couple of years, man. Give it a couple of years. LeBron's going to be right up there with him.
And he is up there with him, but he's not Michael.
That's right.
Michael can take over a game and he would kill you with it. I mean, LeBron doesn't do that, unfortunately. But LeBron has time, and who knows? He may be able to get a chance to do some things yet. But I digress. I wanted to mention some things in regards to doubt.
Yes.
You asked the question in regards to what would you tell somebody, and I would say how much time you have. In my opinion, in my opinion, there's so much information out there that proves that there's a God that it's not even funny. But I would begin with one of the things I'd begin with is the Goldilocks principle in science. You can go there talking about we're a little bit closer to the sun. We can't have life if you go a little bit further away. It's too cold for life. If you go on with you talk about the Big Bang. What started the Big Bang? You look at a jumbo jet and you put that in a junkyard and say how did that make itself? With a tornado, what have you? You would never come up with a jumbo jet type of a thing, or a car, and yet we are the most I want to say intricate thing or most complex thing on Earth, and we're talking about the human body. And so there's so many different things that you could go with in regards to it. You can go with into prophecy even. There's so many things that have been proven true in regards to God's word that it's impossible for it to have been done by anything else. So there's many ways that you can go through and talk about this stuff, but and I want to say that all people do have doubt at one point in time. I know I have it, but what I try to do is go back. I listen to Lee Strobel. I listen to some of these other commentators, Ken Hovind, or some of these people, and it reaffirms it. So you know what? Yes, but so there's many things you can talk about. So I don't know how much time you have.
Well, Stephen, I really appreciate you, brother. I love you, man, and I thank you for listening, and thank you for the thoughts you're bringing, because those are fantastic thoughts, and I think that you make some excellent points.
I heard someone say once, back when they made watches out of parts and it wasn't all digital. You put all the pieces of a watch in a box, and how many years do you shake it before it becomes a watch?
Exactly.
It wouldn't. It just couldn't.
Right.
There's no way all those gears would hook together and make a watch. It just can't.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's an important principle. But again, Stephen, thank you. And those are awesome thoughts, and I appreciate you being a listener of FaithWorks Live, brother. So here's the deal, though. Just like Dan brought up, you don't put parts in a box and shake it up and get a watch. Or how about this? How about that? You have a painting of Mona Lisa on the wall. You're looking at that.
I have the original.
Good.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Me
but
too.
Wait.
Somebody's lying. Somebody ain't telling the truth.
We definitely need to start talking about some pay coming in my direction.
So you have the Mona Lisa, and you look at that, and you can conclude, that just happened. It just occurred.
Somebody spilled some paint accidentally.
Yeah, that's not the way that works. And as that woman says in the commercial, that's not how any of this works. That doesn't work like that. So that's what I'm kind of thinking about. When you look at a painting, you can conclude there's always a master painter. When you look at a building, there's always a builder. When you look at anything that has any semblance of design to it, you can say and conclude there was a designer. And this is bigger than, in my opinion, and this is easier than the whole where did everything begin. This is, just concluding from looking around. There is evidence that everything was made by something. Something designed all of this. And I think that's very helpful. But there's more, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about a couple other issues I think that are helpful in answering this question, how do we know that God exists? Give us a call or text us, 515-727-5842.
From Altoona to Windsor Heights, you can hear us, so why not join us? Call or text 515-727-KTIA.
Did you know that a leaky faucet can actually, if left unrepaired, waste more than 3,000 gallons of water a year? You ever heard of a silent toilet leak? Silent toilet leaks occur when water does not appear to be running, but it is being released. Silent toilet leaks can waste thousands of gallons of water each year. Nathan Shanks, owner of Baldwin Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing, sees problems like this every single day. He can quickly, efficiently, and affordably help you resolve any of your plumbing issues. No problem is too small. No challenge is too large. Call Baldwin Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing today, 515-371-4036. That's 515-371-4036. And Baldwin Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing is one of our fine sponsors for FaithWorks Live, and we're so thankful that they believe in not only 99.3, but they believe in what we do here on our program. And we've been talking today about struggles that people have with doubt, in particular, struggling whether or not they know that God exists. And we talked about, the reality that we can ask the question, well, where did it all begin? If there isn't a God, where did it all start? We talked about the fact that it appears to be that everything has been created in the way that it is because it has this design imprint on it. So if there's a design imprint on all things, that means that there's a designer. And so those are powerful arguments, you could say, for the fact that there is a God. But here's another one, and this is a really big challenge for me, and that is the idea that every person on the planet happens to have a moral code. There are certain things, even though people don't like the term absolute truth, there are certain things that we absolutely know are wrong.
You just know in your heart of hearts.
In your heart of hearts.
There's some conscious thing that says, I shouldn't do this.
Exactly. Like we could say, I know this is we in general know universally that it is wrong to rape a child. Mm-hmm. That's always wrong, all the time, everywhere. And how did that come to be?
Yeah, because it's not everywhere. I mean, it is in people, but not in like the animal. I had gerbils when I was in junior high, and I was so excited because one of my gerbils had babies. And then it wasn't much later that I noticed Mama gerbil ate her babies. You just don't hear that going on in the human world. I mean, there's
not often.
You don't think, hey, I'm kind of hungry. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's that moral thing. I mean, animals don't have that moral code. If we're all the same, we're all just accidentally spawned off of something, we'd all act like animals.
Right.
And we can act like animals, but not in the moral code thing you're talking about.
Right. And so where does that come from? And how did that come to be? Is that something that is just an evolved principle within inside humans, as some might say? But why is it such a universally held thing that there are certain things that are universally wrong and certain things that we know and universally are accepted as right? And how is that across so many cultures, across the world, across the globe? I would believe, and many would conclude, that it's most reasonable to say that that's because God has, as he said in his word, written the truth on our heart and given us this sense. We all have this conscience that he's put inside of us. And so we know the difference between right and wrong because God has instilled that within us. Now, you can ignore your conscience and you can even have your conscience seared. But by and large, most of us understand the difference between right and wrong. And that moral code comes from a higher place, something outside of humanity that was instilled within humanity. So that's a powerful argument in my mind of understanding that there happens to be a God. Another powerful argument, which I believe is profound, but many would say, "Oh, it's not." I don't give a lot of credence to this because it's highly anecdotal. But that is the personal experience argument, that there are millions upon millions of people across this globe that would say that God being near to them is what helped them. God, they knew that there was a God, and that was what gave them the strength to carry on because of God's reality and closeness in their life, the personal experience of so many. One of our listeners on Facebook Live, her name's Maggie. Maggie's a friend of mine. She had a liver transplant a while back, and she, just gives testimony to the fact because of having that experience in her life. She knows that there is a God. God is the one that got her through that. And God is the one that helped her all through that journey. And listen, if you have been with anybody that has had any kind of a transplant experience, you know this is not just a small thing. This is a big thing. And is Maggie wrong? I mean, are all these millions upon millions of people who have said, I know God exists. I know he's there. He's real. He helps me every single day. Are all of those people just smoking pot? Are they all off their rocker? Is that what we are to conclude? Because I believe that is a powerful statement, that there are so many globally that would universally say, I know he's real because he has helped me.
It's like when the religious leaders were after the man who Jesus had healed of blindness, and he couldn't. They're like trying to disprove Jesus, and they're trying to get all over him, and he didn't know theology. He didn't, he couldn't debate in their circle what they knew. And what did he say? Basically said, that's one thing I do know, I was blind and now I see.
That's right.
You can't argue that. I mean, yes,
that's right.
I can see. I know I couldn't see. I know I can see. Jesus did that.
Right.
I can't tell you about all the arguments of apologetics, but I know I can see.
Yep.
You know.
And that's a powerful thing. And that particular chapter in John 9, by the way, I love that whole section, you know, because when it starts out, Jesus's disciples, all they see is this man who obviously is a theological conundrum for them. You know, like, did he sin or does mom and dad sin?
Yeah, yeah.
And Jesus is like,
what do we do with this? Yeah.
No. And then later the Pharisees are like, well, you were healed on the Sabbath. Who did this? This was obviously wrong. And he's like, I just, all I know is I couldn't see, and now I can see, just like you said. And then all of a sudden he goes and Jesus appears to him again a second time, and he falls at his feet and worships this guy who couldn't see his whole life. And now he finally sees Jesus. He only sees what matters most. And that's such a profound story.
Yeah.
I love that. You know, the scriptures say, by the way, when it comes, this is the thing. A lot of young people go off to college. They haven't been undergirded in their faith. And I think, by the way, because I know at the beginning, Dan, you were talking about how some of this stuff kind of makes your brain hurt, you know, but I think some of this stuff is important.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for our young people when, you know, they head off to college, because there are professors out there that just love to kind of pick off young Christians.
Right.
They like to target them and, you know, take them out.
Oh, do I have stories for you? Oh, my goodness.
You had some of that. I mean, you
sure
experienced some of that,
sure
you know,
did.
right here in Des Moines. And so it's real, and it happens. And it's really, I think it's really important and essential for a young person to have at least a basic understanding. They don't need to know all the terms. They don't need to know all the arguments kind of laid out, but asking simple questions. Well, how did it all begin? You know, well, explain to me why it looks like everything has design in it. You know, how did we all get this universal moral right or wrong code? You know, and why is it so many people that I know and love and cherish actually do say that God in his, you know, his personhood has helped them in their own life, you know? So those are four, I think, strong arguments for a person that there's actual labels on those arguments, you know, that they're not helpful.
but it is good to because that's how I approach this. When I have those moments of, man, you know, the doubt or I just need to be reaffirmed in this. There are some great thinkers, some great authors, some just outstanding resources out there. I'll go back and read them again. I'll forget the terms. I'll forget some of the details, but it's like it reaffirms that faith. Like, okay, that is why I have my faith. That is why I'm solid. And I walk away thinking I feel really good about this. I mean, I'm not floundering. This is a solid faith.
Right.
And so it's good to review that stuff.
It is good, and that's. I think it's really important for, like I said, especially for young people to know when they go off to school, they've got kind of a basic undergirding of these things. And so you're going to have people in your life. You're going to have questions at times in your own life, but you're going to have people in your life that are going to ask you, how do you know? And I'm telling you, the things that we talked about today throughout today's show can be very, very helpful by just asking some simple questions and being able to go to resources like Lee Strobel, The Case for Christ, or Josh McDowell. There's so many others out there that are great apologists. There's so many great works that you can rely on. I want to tell you thank you so much for making FaithWorks Live a part of your Monday today. I'm glad that you joined us and were a part of this experience. I'm looking forward to being back with you tomorrow. And it's Tuesday, it's Life Day, and we're going to have a great show. We'll see you then.